In 1914, a single telegram from Berlin to Stockholm could have rewritten the entire history of World War I. Sweden, with its powerful navy and strategic position in the Baltic, stood at a crossroads. What if King Gustav V, cousin of Kaiser Wilhelm II, had given in to the pro-German sentiment swirling through his royal court? This family connection, combined with Sweden's maritime strength, created a potential diplomatic powder keg waiting for a spark. Today, we're examining the scenario where Sweden abandoned neutrality and sided with the Central Powers, a decision that would have altered the Eastern Front, changed the Russian Revolution, and reshaped modern Europe. The internal debates that preceded this moment reveal fascinating insights. The Royal Connection: small decisions with major consequences. In the summer of 1914, as Europe marched toward war, King Gustav V of Sweden found himself caught in an uncomfortable position. On one side stood his country's long tradition of neutrality. On the other stood his family, specifically his German family. Most people don't realize just how intertwined the Swedish and German royal houses actually were, and these connections nearly pulled Sweden directly into the greatest conflict the world had ever seen. The Swedish monarchy's German connections ran far deeper than most citizens realized. King Gustav's marriage to Victoria of Baden created a direct family line to Kaiser Wilhelm II, making them first cousins by marriage. Behind palace doors, the royal family maintained regular, private communications with Berlin. Family letters where discussions of European politics and military matters flowed alongside personal correspondence. This family bond gave the Germans a direct line of influence into the Swedish court that the British and French simply couldn't match. Gustav wasn't alone in his German sympathies. His court contained powerful voices pushing for Sweden to abandon neutrality and join the Central Powers. Swedish Marshal of the Realm Ludwig Douglas actively campaigned for an alliance with Germany, creating a pro-German faction within the highest levels of Swedish government. At official dinners and private meetings, Douglas emphasized the shared interests and cultural connections between the two nations. The historical tensions with Russia further complicated Sweden's position. King Oscar II, Gustav's father, had previously proposed an offensive military alliance with the Ottoman Empire against Russia during the 1904 Russo-Japanese War. This long-standing rivalry provided additional motivation for potential intervention in the Great War. Few history books mention that in November 1910, years before the war started, the general staffs of Germany and Sweden held secret meetings to discuss a joint offensive against St. Petersburg. No formal agreement materialized, but these talks demonstrated how close the military relationship already was. Sweden's neutrality was bending under German influence. Small diplomatic signals, like allowing German ships special passage through Swedish waters, raised alarms in London and Paris as Sweden favored Germany in subtle but significant ways. Private communications reveal how close Sweden came to entering the war. In December 1915, two pro-German advocates, Otto Jarte and Adrian Molin, met directly with King Gustav to urge Sweden to join Germany. According to Jarte's account, the king expressed agreement, stating Sweden would speed into action once German forces entered Finland. Only the limitations of his position as a constitutional monarch held him back. What separated Sweden from war wasn't lack of motivation or capability. It was ultimately the restraint of key decision-makers who understood the risks. The tension between Gustav's personal German sympathies and his constitutional duties created a razor-thin margin that preserved Sweden's official neutrality. While royal family ties created powerful personal pressure on Sweden's leadership, economic factors proved equally persuasive. Sweden's economy had become increasingly dependent on wartime trade with Germany, creating a web of financial connections that nearly pulled them into the conflict. Economic threads: how trade dependencies nearly pulled Sweden into the war. While the royal connection through marriage and family ties created personal pressure on Sweden's leadership, something much more practical threatened the nation's neutrality: money. The economic relationship between Sweden and Germany created a web of dependencies that came dangerously close to pulling Sweden directly into the war. Sweden's iron ore was absolutely essential to Germany's ability to continue fighting. The high-quality ore from the northern Kiruna mines contained minimal phosphorus, making it perfect for manufacturing military-grade steel. Without this steady supply, German war production would have faced a devastating shortage. As British naval blockades tightened around German ports, the Baltic trade routes to Sweden became Germany's economic lifeline when they couldn't get enough raw materials through their North Sea ports. The numbers tell the story clearly. Before the war, Sweden was already exporting significant amounts of iron ore, with production fixed at 22,500,000 tons between 1907 and 1938. After 1914, shipments to Germany increased dramatically. Swedish business owners capitalized on wartime demand, raising prices for greater profits. Mining operations expanded, railway capacity increased, and shipping schedules intensified to meet German needs. The British response created a difficult position for Sweden. The British Navy established a tight blockade to economically strangle Germany. Sweden's insistence on maintaining free trade with both sides sounded fair in principle, but the geographical reality heavily favored Germany. The Allied powers took action, stopping a large percentage of Sweden's trade as punishment. Sweden faced an impossible situation. Their economy depended on German trade, but their population needed goods that only came through Allied-controlled waters. Prime Minister Hjalmar Hammarskjöld refused agreements that might have loosened the British blockade, fearing German retaliation if he appeared to side with the Allies. This policy led to serious food shortages. The Hungary public gave their Prime Minister the nickname Hungerskjöld, combining his family name with the Swedish word for hunger. The economic entanglement created other dangerous incidents. German submarines frequently entered Swedish territorial waters while pursuing Allied shipping. Sweden faced a choice: strongly protest these violations and risk German economic retaliation, or respond with minimal objections and appear to favor the Central Powers. Sweden typically chose the latter, straining relations with Britain and France. Powerful Swedish business interests with financial stakes in German trade formed a lobby advocating for closer ties with Berlin. Industry leaders, shipping magnates, and mining company owners pressured the government to protect their profitable arrangements, representing thousands of Swedish jobs and significant national income. Had Germany made more assertive demands for protected Baltic trade routes, Sweden might have been drawn into active military involvement. The economic reality had already compromised their neutrality. A few German merchant ships sunk by Russian or British vessels might have provided the perfect pretext for Sweden to begin defensive naval operations supporting the German war effort. The Baltic domino effect: military consequences of Swedish intervention. If Sweden had entered the war on Germany's side, the Baltic Sea would have transformed overnight from a contested waterway to a Central Powers lake. Most people don't realize that Sweden actually had a powerful navy in 1914, specifically designed for one purpose: controlling the Baltic. Their fleet included several modern coastal defense ships that, while smaller than full battleships, were perfectly suited for the shallow waters of the Baltic and could challenge even larger Russian vessels. The Swedish Navy actively protected their waters during the war. They escorted 3,640 cargo ships along the Swedish coast throughout the conflict, equivalent to sailing around the globe 64 times, demonstrating their considerable naval capabilities and Baltic operational experience even without direct combat. Swedish intervention would have been decisive due to geography. Naval bases at Karlskrona and Stockholm would have given the German high seas fleet crucial forward positions, allowing German warships to operate continuously throughout the Baltic with proper supply and repair facilities nearby. This geographic advantage would have completely altered the naval equation. Russia would have faced a devastating two-front naval war. The Russian Baltic fleet would have been caught between German and Swedish forces, likely forced to retreat to Kronstadt and surrender control of the vital Baltic shipping lanes to the Central Powers. Sweden's Kustartilleriet, coastal artillery, formed an integral part of their naval strategy with 7,500 men, about half the Navy's total active strength. This force included mobile artillery, infantry regiments, and defense forces capable of securing coastal areas and naval bases, creating a formidable defense line along the Swedish coast. This maritime stranglehold would have created a domino effect on land. Sweden had planned a major army expansion in their 1914 defense bill, doubling their infantry from 6 to 12 divisions. These forces could have directly threatened Finland, then part of the Russian Empire, forcing Russia to either allow Swedish advances towards St. Petersburg or divert crucial troops from the struggling Eastern Front. Such military diversion might have prevented Russia's Brusilov offensive of 1916, which had damaged Austro-Hungarian forces. Without this success, Russian morale might have collapsed earlier, potentially accelerating the Russian Revolution. Despite Sweden's infantry expansion, they maintained the same number of machine guns per division from 1914 to 1918, while major powers significantly increased theirs. Though this equipment gap might have limited their effectiveness in prolonged fighting, the strategic pressure they created would have been substantial. Combined Swedish-German pressure would likely have accelerated Russia's collapse, potentially allowing Germany to secure peace on the Eastern Front before American entry into the war. Their naval control would have sealed Russia's isolation, cutting off vital supply routes and altering the entire Eastern Front. In war, these shifts in military balance often produce enormous consequences. Conclusion. History often balances on seemingly minor choices that could have changed everything. King Gustav's decision to maintain Swedish neutrality despite family connections to Germany, economic pressures, and military capability might have altered the entire outcome of World War I. Had Sweden joined the Central Powers, Russia might have collapsed sooner, reshaping not just military outcomes, but the lives of millions across Europe. Germany could have won the Eastern Front before American forces arrived, creating a Europe with borders unrecognizable to us today. These critical moments of neutrality, economic decision, and military restraint reveal our interconnected world. What seemingly minor choice in our present might reshape tomorrow's history? Might I recommend subscribing to Alt History Zone and becoming a member of the Alt History Zone family? It's the best you can do for a more secure future.